The tension inside NASCAR right now is reaching a whole new level. And after what went down at Dover during the All-Star race, we witnessed two stories that could seriously reshape the conversation around this entire season. The first story involves a post-race moment that has already exploded across the NASCAR world, because what was allegedly said after the checkered flag has fans completely divided, especially when you consider who said it and who it was directed at. The second story is about how chaotic, emotional, and utterly unpredictable this all-star race became from start to finish. Big names wrecking out, drivers openly frustrated, strategies falling apart in real time, and one veteran superstar walking away with $1 million after surviving absolute madness at Dover. This whole night felt like one of those races people are going to be arguing about for weeks. So let's break down everything that happened, the race, the drama, and the moment that may have just cracked something open inside Joe Gibbs Racing. What started as a massive breakthrough performance for Chase Briscoe ended up turning into one of the most uncomfortable and controversial moments we've seen all season inside Joe Gibbs Racing. Because after Denny Hamlin won the NASCAR All-Star race at Dover Motor Speedway and collected that $1 million prize, the conversation immediately shifted away from the race itself and straight toward what allegedly happened between Hamlin and Briscoe after the checkered flag dropped. And if these comments are accurate, this situation could get very ugly very fast. Chase Briscoe finished second on Sunday night. But let's be clear, this was not one of those quiet second-place finishes where a driver simply manages the race and collects a solid result. Briscoe was legitimately one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. He led multiple portions of the race. He went head-to-head with Hamlin for the win. And at several moments throughout the night, he looked fully capable of pulling off the biggest victory of his Cup Series career. That context matters because it's what makes what happened afterward hit so much harder. After the race, Briscoe praised his Joe Gibbs Racing team for the incredible job they did rebuilding his car from scratch after he slammed the wall during practice earlier in the weekend. He openly admitted they basically had to reconstruct the entire car. And somehow they still delivered him a machine fast enough to fight for $1 million on race night. And then there's this. Briscoe also revealed he had been dealing with a stomach bug for 2 or 3 days leading into the race. So physically, he was already not at 100%. Yet he still pushed Denny Hamlin to the very end, against one of the most experienced short-track and concrete-track racers this sport has produced in the modern era. That performance alone earned Briscoe a tremendous amount of respect from fans on Sunday night. But then came the moment that completely changed the tone of the entire evening. According to Briscoe, after the race concluded, he walked over to congratulate Denny Hamlin, completely standard behavior between teammates after battling for a major win. But Briscoe claims that Hamlin responded by telling him he was still not Cup Series level. And when Briscoe repeated that comment to reporters outside the number 19 hauler, you could see it on his face. He was genuinely furious. He didn't call it emotional. He didn't call it competitive trash talk. He used one specific word: classless. You can understand immediately why this exploded online. Because these are not two drivers from rival organizations taking shots at each other. These are teammates at Joe Gibbs Racing, two drivers who represent the same cars, the same sponsor commitments, and the same organization every single weekend on the NASCAR Cup Series circuit. Briscoe made it clear he wasn't asking for praise. He wasn't expecting Hamlin to hand him respect simply because he finished second. But after spending an entire race proving he belonged at the very front, and doing it while sick in a car that had been rebuilt overnight, hearing his own teammate try to diminish that performance hit on a completely different level. And if you watch the race closely, the data backs Briscoe up entirely. He explained after the race that late in the going, his car simply didn't have enough rear grip to fully defend on longer runs. Every time he grabbed the race lead, the car got too loose underneath him. And eventually, Hamlin's long-run experience and his ability to manage that tire wear took over with around 29 laps remaining. That's not a story of a driver getting outclassed. That's a story of a veteran finding the margin he needed against a younger driver who gave him everything he had. Denny Hamlin, for his part, stayed relatively composed when reporters pressed him on Briscoe's accusations afterward. But here's what stood out to a lot of people. He never directly denied saying it. Instead, Hamlin essentially brushed it off, saying emotions run high after intense races, and that they had raced hard all night against each other. That non-denial response alone sent fans into overdrive on social media. Some people defended Hamlin immediately. They pointed out that this is simply who Denny Hamlin is: ultra-competitive, psychologically aggressive, the kind of driver who will use every available tool to maintain mental dominance inside his own garage. For those fans, this was just Hamlin being Hamlin. But a significant portion of the NASCAR fanbase felt the alleged comment crossed a genuine line, particularly because it was directed at a teammate who had nearly delivered Joe Gibbs racing a 1-2 finish in one of the highest-profile non-points races of the entire season. And the larger context here cannot be ignored. Joe Gibbs Racing has already been under real pressure this season as younger drivers attempt to establish themselves while veterans like Hamlin continue to control much of the organization's spotlight and internal power structure. So now the question everyone is asking is straightforward. Is there actual serious tension building inside that organization? Because this didn't feel like normal post-race frustration. It felt personal, and it felt deliberate. While all of this drama was unfolding in the infield, the race itself was pure chaos from the opening laps to the final checkered flag. Hamlin acknowledged after the race that having an exceptionally fast car made his job significantly easier, but he also gave credit to the race format, specifically how the invert and heavy traffic created genuine challenges throughout the night. He pointed to long-run speed as the decisive factor, particularly once drivers became trapped in dirty air and couldn't escape it. Hamlin also mentioned, with a bit of a smile, that he might give the $1 million prize to his mother, which honestly became one of the only lighthearted moments after such an emotionally intense evening. But Dover was genuinely brutal for a long list of drivers. Chase Elliott never advanced out of the first segment after getting caught up in multiple crashes during the chaotic early action. Elliott admitted afterward he didn't even know what the correct strategy was, because the race had become complete survival mode almost immediately. He described cars sliding down the banking everywhere as incidents started cascading. Ross Chastain also failed to advance after significant damage destroyed the front clip on his number 1 Chevrolet. He sounded frustrated but cautiously optimistic, noting that he believed Trackhouse racing had shown real improvement compared to recent outings, particularly with the current downforce package. John Hunter Nemechek had one of the more painful exits of the night. He said his team had worked hard all weekend to recover speed, and he genuinely felt competitive during the race, right up until he got collected in another massive incident involving Riley Herbst, who either got loose or was turned on the front stretch. Nemechek described it as heartbreaking, because his team had a legitimate shot at starting on pole for the second segment before ending up completely destroyed in the garage instead. Ryan Preece also endured a terrible night, finishing 36th. He took a massive impact and admitted afterward he still wasn't entirely sure what triggered the incident entering turn 1. Preece even offered an apology if the wreck turned out to be his fault, which says a great deal about the kind of emotional weight these drivers were carrying throughout the entire event. This is exactly why Sunday night at Dover feels much larger than a simple exhibition race. You had aggressive, physical racing. You had multiple destroyed cars and drivers openly venting their frustration. You had veterans and younger drivers clashing both on the track and emotionally in the post-race paddock. And now you potentially have genuine, serious tension fracturing one of NASCAR's most decorated and historically significant organizations. That's the kind of stuff that fans carry with them deep into the regular season. Because whether you love Denny Hamlin or find him impossible to root for, moments like this keep him positioned right at the center of every major NASCAR conversation, year after year. And for Chase Briscoe, this may actually represent a turning point moment in his career. Not just because of the speed he showed on the racetrack, but because of how he handled himself emotionally in the aftermath. He didn't lash out uncontrollably. He didn't hide from the question. He answered it directly, called it what he believed it was, and moved on. Fans noticed that, and that kind of moment can shift how an entire fan base views a driver going forward. The real question now is simple. What happens next inside Joe Gibbs Racing? Do Hamlin and Briscoe move on immediately, lock back in, and focus on winning races at Charlotte and beyond? Or does this become one of those slow-burning internal rivalries that builds quietly week after week, until something finally boils over later in the season when the playoff pressure is at its absolute peak? Because Charlotte is next, and emotions are not going to cool down between now and then. This is ultimately why NASCAR stays so compelling year after year. It is never just about turning laps. It is about personalities, pressure, egos, and the relentless pursuit of respect in a sport where proving yourself happens in real time, in front of millions of people at 200 miles per hour. The drama is real. The stakes are real. And the next chapter of this story is going to be worth watching very closely.